back on.
Yeah. No, I'm going to wait first.
See? Because we had
Let's see who we have here. If we have anyone, we got 3 people there.
Oops.
Yeah. Now I'm not sure. My clock
is off.
Let's see. There it is. You can now see 5:44 according to mine. What's yours?
6:44.
6:44 here.
On the other hand, other people say 6:44. So I'm really not sure.
We had a time change last night.
But we're going with the idea that my phone has not updated. I'm trying to turn it off. Turn off. Okay, it's powering off, and then I'll power back up again. Hey, Stephen B. Hey, Chris. Hey, Cherokee. How you doing?
Is your computer update?
No, it says 5:44 on my computer, but it doesn't communicate with anything.
You gotta go in and change that.
I know I can. I know there's a setting somewhere.
You click on the date and time thing, and you follow the directions to put in where you are.
Click on it. Right click.
I believe so. If you right click, you should get it just
Adjust date.
Yeah, and then it'll ask you what time zone you're in.
Yeah, see, I'm in Arizona, is what it says. So we're now in Mountain Standard Time, right?
Yep.
Yeah, we're now Mountain Standard.
Mountain Time, U.S. and Canada. Okay.
There you are.
Okay.
It updated.
So, folks, we're now in the right time stream, I guess.
This is all his fault.
Oh, absolutely. Eva, Cherokee likes the new hair.
It is definitely your fault because you mentioned the time zone change to me earlier. So
Well,
I assumed you had.
Yeah, well, I'm from Arizona. Hey, Jason, nice to see you. I'm glad I'm not seeing you since you said you're out of the shower, but nice to see your handle there. Ragnar.
Hi, everybody.
Yeah. Hello, everybody.
Okay, so anyhow, we got 12 already up there, and there'll be more. Hey, Truth Seeker, be more dropping on here shortly. You're seeing a little different background because I have built a new desk, and so I was over there in the corner, and now I'm over here with a lot more room to work. And Jim is right next to me. We'll get him in scene here in a little bit here. Truth Seeker. Anyhow, what's happening this week? Did some more research, another couple days of research. Did a little bit of fix-up stuff here at the motel. They had a little roof work needed to be done down there. And
Cool.
it took us a month to get a new heating element for one of the stoves because it's old. And they sent us one. It was here like within about a week or so. And the ceramic insulator was broken.
Oh, crap.
So had to send that back, and they couldn't get that. And it finally just got another one. So it's like, wow. So got that done.
He caught fish for me.
I actually caught a couple fish this time. You people may not know it, but the fish that were in the picture 2 weeks ago were not my fish. I didn't say anything. I made no false assertions. But, I brought home food.
He was being sneaky.
Then
Then we had a duck.
Yeah, when we tried some duck too. Up here apparently the food stores do things a little differently than where I'm used to. I mean, you can go over to Winco here and buy duck for $2.98 a pound, and it's
Cheaper
like
than bacon.
Yeah, cheaper than bacon. So it's like I'd like to try a duck, so we did, and went out yesterday and strained a lot of water, didn't catch any fish, and had duck anyway. Screw it. Yeah, that duck was pretty good. I've never had duck before. I did have goose one time gosh, over a decade ago. I'd never had goose or duck before, and Eva said she could cook. So I went looking for a Christmas goose, which in Tucson costs you about $65. And you have to find out the same weird meat market that you get, alligator and stuff like that at too. So it's pretty funny. I didn't find the duck to be greasy, but you do peel the skin off of it because it does have a big fat layer under it. So instead of chicken where you can like cook it where you got a nice crisp little skin, that didn't work too well on the duck. And it came with an orange and spice sauce packet. Sauce? Oh, yeah. No, it wasn't sweet and sour. It was an orange glaze
marmalade or something
with like ginger and stuff in it. And I didn't think it was going to taste too good when because I rubbed it on the duck with my hands and it's like, wow, it didn't smell too good, but it cooked.
It was a sweet heat orange. It had orange and chili powder. It was not the ginger and cinnamon kind.
Yeah.
I will make a real glaze next time.
Yep. But anyhow, so that was an interesting experiment. My recuperation continues apace. Let's see. Not much besides going fishing a couple of days this week. Trying to learn the local patterns, where the fish are, what they're biting on, how to catch them. Like I've found I can do a real good job catching the bottom below the dams. The problem is I'm not too good at catching the fish just above the bottom below the dams. And so I'm trying various techniques to see what I can do to improve the catch rate and decrease the cost. There was a guy, we were below Canyon Ferry Dam, and that dude, he was slamming the little browns with a, what was that again, little one?
Cast master.
A cast master, yeah. He was just slamming them. I mean, I saw him catch 3 and 3 casts. They were, this big. No big deal. But, and you're not allowed to keep browns here, so that's kind of unfortunate, but whatever. He was and then they caught a big rainbow. Yeah. Got to get back further. About like, this big, like 3 to 4 pound rainbow. And it's like, nah, that's okay. I don't want that. It's too big. Eva says it won't taste good. So, exploring the territory and getting to know things. I've looked at a lot of maps and the research, but to get a feel for how far apart things are and so there's no better way than just get there and do it.
Go there.
And so we had a lot of fun just exploring. My computer is theoretically going to be in the mail tomorrow, the new computer, so hopefully I can start making some more videos. I'd have had 2 or 3 videos of just kind of touristy stuff up till now, except I can't even do that at the moment, but it's on the way. Let's see. Hey, Smoking, how's it going? Yeah, I had a real good time, and Eva want to throw me a Wilbur?
I won't throw my Wilbur.
Anyhow, Eva, when she can't get cell phone coverage, she crochets. So she made a little blankie for.
I made a little papoose sack for my Wilbur.
And then there'll be some fancy trim.
And I'm going to get some ribbon so that when I'm traveling with Wilbur, I can tuck him in nicely and tie it all together, and he can just dangle off my wrist. See?
So, anyhow, that's what she does to kill time. So that's what's been going on there. Eva will have her tinfoil hat report later again this evening on various legal issues. What is your plan for tonight?
I don't really have one. I have a couple ideas, but I don't. Okay. There's no plan.
So Wilbur Cherokee says Wilbur, and what are those things there?
I don't know. Bacon.
Not my word. Mike, Cherokee, if it has a name, it is a pet. If it does not have a name,
It's dinner. Yes.
Wilbur is a pet.
Anyhow, so it's going to be kind of free form right now. First of all, any questions anyone has?
Said what happens if we get buffered out?
I'll go ahead and try and restart again,
Same thing.
and we'll go from there. If we get buffered out again, we'll see what happens. Let's see what some of the questions I got from the international comments. Some one guy from South America sent me some pictures of some rock to say, does this look interesting? And yes, it did look like hydrothermal quartz with a lot of mineralization in it. So it was very Cherokee says she's already seen a little bit of buffering. We'll see if that's just an oddball. What's the airspeed of an unladen swallow?
Yeah.
European or African?
It doesn't say unladen. I presume since he's from California, like a Capistrano swallow.
Well, I'm just quoting Monty Python here.
Well, I would guess somewhere around 40 miles an hour, but I don't know. Let's see. Apparently you got it. Chris goes, LOL. Thank you, Eva. So you got the reference.
Yeah, from the Holy Grail.
Buffered out. That isn't.
Now, you see, because Bear didn't get it, I need to lob my holy hand grenade of Antioch at him.
Well, I don't see one, so I'm not terribly worried.
Oh, Lord, bless this thy hand grenade.
So anyhow, that's basically what was an interesting situation where he just, that's some interesting looking stuff. Unfortunately, they don't have any functioning laboratories in his neck of the planet. So he's going to have to try and do the hand panning himself as the only methodology of getting an idea what's in the rock. He was also wondering if it would be a good place to look for placers nearby. And of course, yes, if you got, mineralized rock. Let's see. Somebody else international was doing something, I forget what. I don't know. We haven't gotten any results back yet from Butte. We haven't got any results back on the 50 element analysis from the lab on some concentrates I sent it from Montana B. So I'm not sure what's going on there. No, Chris, he cannot. But I am guessing in the next week or so, I'll be actually staking some claims up here. We would have been already, except for just waiting for the access to open up. And I suspect that we'll be doing that. And it's been an interesting research effort. And I want to thank Chris for helping me on that. Notice I didn't call you today, Chris. And I went to the second, original sources, things like that. So I'm learning. The county I was looking at now, it was so frustrating to be reading a report. Here's a mine, blah, 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 blah. No production records are available. No production record. One after another after another. It's like, could you give me any kind of an idea what they found there? So about half of the mines, I didn't even have any kind of an idea on the grade.
Geologic reports.
And so that, I could sit there and spend the next 3 years going into detail on every single mine. But the idea is a quick survey to try and find mines that, number one, have better than $1,000 a ton in gold and silver, and that are currently not claimed but can be claimed. So they're on land that is theoretically open to mineral exploration but do not currently have claims. And that's a pretty, especially up here where, oh my God, I've never seen so many patented in my life. There was one section there where it had to have at least 30 or 40 patented claims in it.
I believe it.
They were just
well,
like a really bad roofing
if
job.
somebody found gold, then somebody else found, they started claiming it up.
You could tell where the mineralized formations were just by the swath of claims covering the territory. It was pretty interesting to see at times. And so we have been finding so far at least one, call it a high priority target in each county. And that's gone up to 2 or 3 in some cases per county. And there's a number of secondary targets that look potentially interesting, but right now we're really just going for the cream.
Well, we
got lots to do.
You have to go out and find those potentials, and that's how you start doing it.
And so we're keeping track of the secondary targets too. For example, if the price of gold or silver dramatically increases, then the priority can change pretty dramatically.
Correct.
We've got stuff that's not, unreasonable to expect 30 ounces to the ton silver as an average. I mean, that's what the historical record for that mine is.
Mm-hmm.
And currently that'd be 30 times 25 is $750. But if it just went up to 35, now we're over $1,000.
Yep.
So basically anything that was more than 20 ounces silver or over half an ounce gold would draw my further attention. If it was less than that, I wasn't interested. I didn't even bother.
And in this area, there was a lot of gold mines that literally were 3/4, half an ounce, 3/4 ounce, 1 ounce per ton. And at $20 gold or $16 gold in some cases, they quit mining them because of that. The economics at that time did not work.
Well, there's a lot of that. And right now we may be in a watershed situation for reasons which we must not discuss, lest we be banned from the cybersphere. It's been a very productive 2 or 3 weeks here looking at the various possibilities. Because right now we got roughly a half a dozen targets, any one of which looks like it's got a high probability of being an actual mine. So that gives me a number of jobs of just staking the claims and such. So that's got a week or two of work there. Plus, if you're staking the claim, you might as well be getting a sample while you're there. So that's going to increase the time frame a bit. And then once we get that done, then by then we should be able to get to Montana B. Hopefully Butte will have us some results and such, and we can continue on with that. I've got access to get and a lot more samples to take from Montana B. So we should have a lot of stuff going on. But I'd say right now it's been pretty boring to watch and pretty annoying just to do it because my back is not good at sitting there doing this on the computer screen. Very annoying. I'm going to move that over there just a little bit for now. Yeah, I don't look so cattywampus when I'm watching it. So that's an interesting thing. I would recommend, if any of you live in gold mining areas, places that have that, try and look up some stuff online. It's amazing what's available. All this stuff that I've been looking up, that I got on a CD at Montana Bureau of Mines, I can actually look it up online only too, now that I know what to look for. So, and the source material that they use to make that report is also online. There's these U.S. Geological Survey bulletins and stuff, and so when I'm looking at one document that's listing a bunch of lines with mines with locations, and it doesn't have the details I need, it'll usually list a citation that I can go back to the bibliography, find the citation, look it up online, track it down.
An older report, maybe.
And it's an older report, this, that, or the other.
Different geologists at one time.
And sometimes there, for example, you'll have a report on a county, and when they put that together, some of the reports might have been report on this mining district. That's part of what they sourced and compiled to do this. So that information can be in greater detail. And so that's what I have done. And it's been educational in terms of how to do the research too. Chris has been a great help there. I want to thank him again. But yeah, that's a lot of possibility. Now, Montana is a bit of a target-rich environment when it comes to old mines, but so is Arizona, Nevada.
There was so many interesting factors to why some of these mines closed. I mean, sometimes it was the distance to a processor. Some of it was the values. 3/4 of an ounce of gold at a certain point wasn't economical enough to hire more help and put in more track and up the ante, so to speak, in the infrastructure. So these guys would just walk away. They go try to find something that's richer. Well, nowadays at the gold price, though, 1 ounce per ton on a vein, it could get kind of interesting.
Well, it's not just that, but you can apply different technology. Back in the day, a lot of this stuff was simply shipped to a smelter, shipped to a smelter.
Yep, some of it they
And if it wasn't amenable to the process, one today I saw where the grade was pretty reasonable, and it said it had too high a silica content for the smelter to process.
Well, and some of them didn't want too high a iron, depending on what other ore they were running. So they could discount you on iron. So if you had an iron-rich ore, they might say, you know what, we don't want that right now. Mm-hmm. Well, that's kind of the end of your mine at that point, at least, at that time period, until they had different ore, or they could blend it with different ore. Well, with something that had a different level, lower level of iron.
Up here in this area, a lot of it had to do with the smelters and where they were hauling it to. I mean, I've seen reports of ores being hauled as far as Europe.
Oh yeah, yeah. A lot of it went to Wales, England from here.
Yeah. So,
and some of it went to St. Louis, Missouri.
Yeah.
They had smelters down there early on in the 1870s. A lot of it was going downriver from here. Mm-hmm. So it had to have been, it was hand sorted ore, but it was rich ore, because you're not going to do all that work to bag it and put it on barges and boats and haul it down the river for whatever that is, 1,000 plus 1,200 miles.
Long way.
Yep.
So you never know why they stopped, but I have found that even this one document, this one compilation, has been extraordinarily valuable, or at least apparently valuable. And I say it certainly got me more than enough to do in one summer. Oh, Lord, this can get ugly. But it's better to be too busy than not busy enough, at least in my opinion. Hi, David. And so that's kind of the plan for this summer. And hi, Mr. Lodak. So there will be a lot of different videos on a lot of different segments in terms of there's going to be claim staking. I haven't done a whole lot of video on the research because I can't do it without showing you the research, which is kind of confidential. Although I may actually get some documents from some other county just to do a video on it, like, Nevada or something, just to show how it can be done. And the preliminary sampling, secondary sampling, establishing ore bodies, doing the metallurgical research, all that stuff. And it looks like I'm going to be doing all of it this summer. So that's going to be very interesting. And I've also got articles to write for the California Mining Journal too. And the one thing that's annoying there is I can't take screen captures off my videos because they're too low a resolution. So we have to remember to take actual photographs while we're doing stuff so
they can print it.
So they can print it in the thing. Exactly.
That was a good article, that last one you had there on mass balancing. I thought that was a really good article.
Well, I'm trying to cover subjects that I haven't seen well covered before,
and that is one that hasn't been. Definitely.
I mean, it's really important,
extremely,
to be, profitable, and yet you never see it used. Never see an article on it, and so I'm going to try and focus when I can on those subjects which are less well covered, but still quite important.
Right.
And so that can help everyone out better. Yeah, the obviously important topics that nobody bothers to talk about. Exactly, Chris.
Well, and that's,
which is also, I think, what I think Eva's going to be very useful too with the tinfoil hat report, because she can do that kind of, it bores me to tears and annoys me to crap research that
when you can find anything to research.
Yeah,
there is a pandemic. It's called 404.
Yeah, well, I try and keep myself educated, but there was a particular presentation this week, which I probably shouldn't even mention the name of, where some public figure started talking, and after 2 sentences, I had to turn it off because I was just getting so angry because it was such BS. And I know I'm supposed to sit there and listen to this so I can analyze it, etc. I'm like, I'm just going to have to look to other analyses or clips or this, that, or the other.
I couldn't do it either. So
King Biden, the incoherent, very difficult to listen to.
Yeah, but anyhow, so the whole concept of understanding the general situation you have to work within is also terribly important, because external circumstances will drive success or failure from a number of different directions. So we'll try and keep you apprised on any of the significant factors that we can see and somewhat at least quantify to help you guys understand what's you're going to have to deal with. For example, that new Department of Interior mission statement last week was pretty shocking, actually.
Yeah.
It's like, yeah, this is a department,
kind of makes you question.
Yeah. So the suspicion, of course, is that trying to legal permission to accomplish things on federal few years is going to be extraordinarily difficult in all likelihood. That may change in 2 to 4 years depending upon other circumstances. But I think we should all plan on not being able to get plans of operation, notices of intent, and things like that routinely approved like they were in the past.
Yeah, it won't be a 30-day approval.
So I think you should try and plan on that and judge things accordingly. For example, operate at much smaller levels, look for targets that are more high grade, low tonnage, things that are a little farther out in the sticks, things that are in jurisdictions that are less likely to be difficult, such as Montana versus California. I'm sure that I could get things done easier than Chris, all else being equal, just because of the location I'm at and the political environment here. So that's important.
The other thing, guys, is the next 2 years or 3 years or whatever this episode's going to encompass is a good chance to look at potential targets and start doing the homework that we've been talking about, and start chasing placer to source. Start looking at why drainages, if you've got consecutive drainages with gold, start trying to put piece A and piece B together as to what's the tie-in between those drainages, and at what point, if systems or something going on there. Because if you spend time to learn a drainage or learn an area, you can start to realize that there's a pattern, and the pattern will follow over into the next drainage in a lot of cases, or over the mountain on the other side. And if you start to do that, especially, like, I'll pick my target areas as historically productive areas, maybe like a high purity gold or coarse gold. That's the research that I'll start to look for. And keep building with information from there. And this next year or two, maybe that's the thing to concentrate on, is identify areas and go spend the time walking drainages and walking, mountaintops and ridges, and try to figure out why.
I think it'd be a good time to potentially file claims too.
Could very well be.
Because if your regulatory environment is such that it's hard to work, then people may be putting less effort into exploration. And if you do the exploration now and get the paperwork done, then in 2 to 4 years, when things hopefully turn around, then you'll have something to rock on,
Well, and some of these placer areas even that, have been mined fairly heavily, you get to start looking at them and you'll realize that there was, limitations that the old miners had, lack of water, a lack of gradient, depth to bedrock, benches that were completely overlooked because they only mined to an existing water ditch and never went beyond the water ditch, possibly. There's a lot of things that are overlooked.
Another thing that closed down mines in the past on a fairly regular basis was water.
Oh, yeah.
They didn't have the kind of pumping technology that we have now.
Not at all.
And so they had mines that the reason they stopped mining is because they ran into water. So that's another thing that, is potentially a readily solvable problem that doesn't necessarily apply nearly as much nowadays as it did. True Seeker, I agree that it's going to be very difficult to predict what kind of damage et cetera, and how it's all going to work out. But I think that a reasonable prediction of the future would include things like inflation and increased prices of precious metals.
Yep.
And with potential explosive moves upward. And right now, if things are depressed because they're manipulating markets or for whatever reasons, and then it explodes upward, that's not the time to be staking your claim. Now's the time to be staking the claims. So I think that research and acquisition of mineral rights is a good way to spend your time right now. At least that's apparently been my experience. So I'd say hopefully by the end of the summer, we'll have a number of potential properties, and who knows which one we may be working, because if some are easier to to deal with than Montana B, we may very well be doing that instead. Truth Seeker, I could not argue with your assumption.
Yeah.
Let's see. Hey, Lincoln. AFK food. I'm not sure what the. Okay. But I say, you should also be working on making your personal life as disruption resistant or resilient as possible. You may not be able to continue on the way you've been doing under a wide variety of circumstances, but as long as you can adapt successfully to the new circumstances, then it's successful. And that's where resiliency comes in. You want to avoid, for example, any anchors that you don't have to have. Now's not a good time to go out and buy an expensive boat, for example. Okay. And things like that. So look at your life, see where you can simplify, see where you can maybe refocus. And if you can get
Pay down variable interest debt.
Yeah, pay down variable interest debt for sure. Get out of variable interest anything, unless it's getting money back to you, because we're entering an environment where things could be beyond anything we've seen before. Think Venezuela, etc. So one thing you do want to do is you get out of variable rate debt. Absolutely. Avoid any debt that doesn't make good economic sense in the particular situation. For example, my brother came up with the idea that we have a relative that's fairly young. He's in his 30s. He's in business and doing fairly well. And my brother suggested to him that if he can get properties at a low fixed rate that he can easily afford, pick them up. Because if you have a fixed rate loan and inflation is going through the roof, well, you bought it for dollars and you're paying it back with pennies. So say if you can pick something up like that, that may be a good idea. Not a variable rate. Don't take any risks that if they turn out wrong are going to be catastrophic. That sort of thing. So,
Right.
So I say these are the sort of things, but I think the precious metals are a good potential alternative. In other words, if you have a potential metal opportunity along with a conventional opportunity, kind of no matter which way things go, you're going to be able to make it work. You're going to be able to get by. And when stuff is hitting the fan, getting by is success. Somebody will make lots of money. Traumatic times create lots of opportunities.
They do.
So don't be terrified. Be wide-eyed. Keep looking at everything with the eye to what to run away from and what to grab at the same time. So I think it's a good time to be picking up properties right now. Things have been so stable for so long that it's just kind of sitting in the doldrums. And the situation, it looks to me pretty well primed for some interesting times ahead. So I'm glad I'm in a situation where I can put my energies to use grabbing, well, it's not me, but I'll be doing it for someone else, but getting some access to a variety of opportunities. As long as I do my job well, I'll
He's
be in
right.
good shape.
You're right on that, Mr. Lodak.
Yeah.
That is part of their trap, is get you in debt, and then you're owned. I mean, it's got a slavery element to it.
Yeah. Well, I think most of us are pretty independent sorts, or we wouldn't be in this hobby or business, depending upon your particular situation.
Yeah.
But I would suggest people go out there and do some research. People like Forrest, for example, who lives in the middle of Nevada.
Well, I think it's a good time for potential. The future for gold or copper, silver, a lot of it's looking, long term. If you look out 12 years into the future, which we don't know what tomorrow is really, but
is there good fishing?
We're going to need metals, and the United States, as it sits, hasn't really been producing much of anything, for the last 40 years. Well, it leaves an opportunity that if this turns around or if it collapses and we start over, those mining claims probably aren't going to go away.
Well, the minerals in the
minerals and that is going to have value, and there'll be people who will want to invest in that, to bring mines forward or to look at possibilities.
Another thing
and I think that opportunity is in front of us, guys. Processing, small processing setups.
Or even the big smelters. I mean, you can't have large amounts of base metals without big smelters, and they've been kind of chased out of this country.
Yeah.
And
lead, zinc, tin, we don't make any of it.
Yeah. And so that's, we need to rebuild some of our infrastructure there for sure, for just our own security.
I figured we could kind of center around potential tonight, because that's what all of us are going to go out and do, whether you're doing it on a hobby level or you're going to actually go prospect some ground for something bigger. There's a lot of potential out there that has been completely walked over and missed. It wasn't apparent 100 years ago. There's going to be some interesting, chances in the mineral industry, I believe.
Okay. Argonaut, Keith, have you moved a prospect to a production operation, or is it better to just try and unload or sell? That depends on the particular prospect. If you have a prospect that has small, high-grade deposit, and you're looking for something you can count on in the future, you may want to keep it yourself. If you need cash for some other purpose, it might be better to sell. If it's a large, low-grade deposit, then you're probably better off selling or leasing. I generally prefer lease.
Even in a moderate-sized environment, if you look at the majority of junior miners that are listed on the Canadian Stock Exchange, most of them are financed by bigger mining companies. They split shares, stock back and forth to raise the funding to develop, because the development costs, in order to actually really truly prove that there's reserves there, you do have to do some drilling. And depending on the drilling, if you reverse circulate drill, or if you actually have to core drill, the dollars per foot can get really, really expensive. And if you've got to put, 15,000 feet of drill into the ground, you can spend a couple $1 million real fast just in the beginning stage of a project. So in a lot of cases, if you identify it and maybe claim up some claims around it and then bring in a bigger person, you might still be able to maintain a percentage of the thing, which could be very valuable, but pass it into somebody that can actually finance the exploration. That's one of the things I'm working on right now, is a big project. And dealing with these guys, when you go from what they call a brownfields project, which is basically just surface identification, to a greenfields project, to where you can write a 43-101, on a mineral prospect to raise money, to raise funding for the exploration project, it's tough, because if you're not already a junior miner and subsidized by some big mining companies, they don't necessarily want to talk to you.
Yeah.
You're not in the circle. And mining, believe it or not, around the world is tied up with mainly large mining companies.
Well,
They run the junior miners. They decide on where the exploration money gets spent. Short of being a wildcatter, I mean, if your grandfather has a couple $1 million he'll let you play with or something, yeah, then you might have a chance wildcatting.
well,
But it's expensive.
think of it like construction. You've got big, giant construction companies that handle big, giant projects.
Correct.
And then they will take on smaller projects where they subcontract stuff out. You have subcontractors who do individual specialties or whatever, and you have some real small custom builders, for example, that build one home at a time, and they focus on quality and value in terms of the high price, high quality home where they make a high profit margin, and they'll do it like one home at a time. But the other guys focus on larger volume, lower profit margins, and the junior mining companies that he's talking about would be like the subcontractors
to a bigger mining company.
for a bigger development company.
In a lot of cases, that's what they are. They're actually completely financed by couple of large mining companies.
Yeah.
That's a good idea, Kevin. I like that idea, playing with cast iron and doing some pours in the backyard. How cool.
Yeah. Bonding is enough for the exploration. It
No.
depends on what it is that the project entails. Again, if you're doing minor enough exploration with no surface disturbance and no discharges, you don't need any bonding.
Well, on the project I'm on right now, we bonded it, permitted under the exploration license to go in and do some major trenching, as deep as we can dig with excavators and break up rocks, so we can get a look at the features along the hillside.
The structure.
Yep. Yeah. And then we were going to open up 2 portals and stabilize the portals and fix the road and put in a bridge, because we have to cross a drainage to get in there. And that is actually a pretty big package right there when you start looking at the bridge and then the timbers for the mine and then the excavation. And we're going to bulk sample out of a couple of the portals too, take out maybe 100 ton and send it to see what the processing is going to be and what values that we could just immediately pull out, just to get an idea, basically a huge test. And then continue with the geologic mapping, which you need a geologist for, to do it basically third party, because that's what a mining company wants to see. A lot of your assays and your testing were third party. Mm-hmm. It can't be done by you. You can go up there and find the gold or find the copper or whatever, or silver. You can find the ore, send it in, get an assay, get some numbers, continue finding it at, up the mountain or wherever, expand the region. And then you really have to have complete third party with any of your tests that you're doing, whether that's the assays or drilling or anything, to bring. It is a big gamble, but in the end,
that's why it's best with somebody else's money.
Well, and it takes a little bit to understand it too, but you can wildcat to a certain level and know when you need to pull in the big guys and say, okay, here's what we know. And if everything goes right, we can get to a point right there where we can write a 43-101, which will help them get funding or help them take it to a mining company to get funding. And if you can get to that point, you've taken, let's just say that mining claim was, $263 or whatever. And all of a sudden you've put together 10 claims. So you've got $3,000 tied up, give or take. And then you've got some testing and assays you've done and some expenses. And then like in our case, now we've got bonding, which was $10,000 and some other expenses. But on a small budget, we can get to a point that literally, if the project is successful going forward, it very easily could be a $50 million project.
Oh yeah. That's
So,
small.
so we've taken, let's just say, $50,000 or $60,000 worth of effort and turned it into a much, much bigger thing.
And yeah, the idea is you try and take high risks with little dollars.
Right.
And as each stage occurs, you don't proceed unless the risk has been reduced. For example, he went in and found an old mine and spent the effort to open it up, which has some physical risk, but also he used resources.
It was I had a few days and I had time.
And then when he goes in and he sees it, now he spends more time and money exploring it. But every step he takes past that initial one, there's something pulling him further along. It's not like he's like, I don't see why I'm doing this.
Well, and
I know why I'm doing this.
Well, some projects you'll start digging test holes, whether it's a placer or hard rock. You'll start doing a test hole here, and you're looking at this rock, and sometimes the project will start to look worse and worse as you go along, but not always. Sometimes it starts looking better and better because the more time you spend in an area, and the more you realize that, okay, I've got visual here, and over on this hillside I can find nice iron stained rock, and you start putting pieces together, and pretty soon you start to create your own map. And all of that leads into you're adding value to the original mining claim that you were starting with, basically. And as you add that value, that time and effort and persistence, it can have a huge payout. I mean, this is how people made money in the past, is hunt. You got to do your homework. You got to stay at it, and you keep it is gambling. I'll guarantee you it's gambling. But
well, the other thing is too, there you have, once you've acquired a certain amount of information, if it's positive, you can sell the claim for a certain amount of money.
Right. You can ask.
It may not be nearly what you want for it, but you can probably make more money than you've got into it.
Oh yeah.
If you've had some
a lot of times, if you've put the historical together with the knowledge you've gained as you've been putting these pieces together, in a lot of cases you can say, yeah, there's a placer there, or there's some hard rock here, and suddenly, yeah, that claim could be worth $15,000. Well, maybe you only have 800 in it. But if you can put it together as a complete package and be able to show somebody what you've figured out, that your time has value. So, and there's a lot of interesting potentials to take this in different ways.
And Lincoln, with these changes, you think it's all a gamble, and I agree. At this point,
but 3 years,
it would be difficult to do it. But you cannot stop mining forever.
No. And we've actually, in this country, for 40 years, we haven't had much mining. A few of the big operations in this area have continued, but it has to come back at some point. And if you're the guy that's put the time and effort into locating something that could have potentially value, you're going to get your money back. Time you have is you're actually building on something that, yeah, you're not seeing the payout instantly, unless you're a good, your detector hits the 15-ounce nugget. But
well, there's another couple things too. And number one is knowledge. The way you get better at stuff is actually doing it.
Yeah.
So even if Project A turns out to not work so well or whatever, you learned more in Project A
that you can take to B.
That you can take this research. I'm a lot better at it now than I was 3 weeks ago because I've been doing it, so many hours at a time. And
said it was I seen it
buffering
across the screen.
Let's go ahead and let's assume.
After you shut down, I will come back with the tinfoil hat report.
Okay. Okay. We'll get that to you, Argonaut. You want to write that down real quick there?
What do you need?
How does outsourced milling work?
Outsourced? Okay.
Okay. And we'll go ahead and shut down and reboot here. Okay, wait a minute. We got Mr. Lodek says he's doing okay.
Maybe
You
it might have cleared up. It was only
Okay.
just that one blip I seen on there. But.
Some little thing probably.
Well, to answer your question, Argonaut, and I think both Keith and I can add to this. In test running, you try to find a place to run just your material, ideally, so that they're not blending it off. And they will pay you on an average assay, or they can a lot of times just hand you your gold, silver, copper, or whatever back. You just pay for processing.
Mm-hmm.
As far as outsourced milling, that's kind of common in mining, but you got to find a mill that, I mean, if you're going to start shipping 500 tons at a time or something, you have to find somebody that's capable of taking that and can work with the ore that you have, because the ore that you have may have to, you know, like for us, they have to go to British Columbia, or it may have to go to St. George, Utah.
Or we have to go to China.
Or China, or Germany.
It's got arsenic
I mean,
in it.
ideally, Germany's actually got some of the best production, but you basically, at that point, you want to be able to just ship concentrates that are very concentrated, to where maybe it's 1 ton bags, you're shipping a container load or something at a time, just because of the freight.
Yeah, it all depends on what it is you're trying to do. If you're trying to do milling as opposed to refining,
Right.
then it has to be relatively close in general, because you got a lot more volume to haul.
Right.
And there are places that will do that. And then you also have, you know, once it's been concentrated, then you get to the smelting and refining portion, and that may have to go someplace entirely different. And it's all going to be very ore dependent. But the more mills and smelters we have available, the more likely it is you'll find something that'll work. And that's one of the things that's kind of changed the dynamic over the last 40 years, is they've been shutting down smelters and mills and not starting new ones up.
We don't have any lead smelters left in the United States.
And so that creates a shipping cost that you'd prefer to avoid. And so that will hopefully answer that question. Let's see. So Eva's going to be doing her report in 20 minutes here. I think I should probably try and start putting together a list of mills, refiners, and stuff like that, so that
the recent list I found had 446 refineries in the United States. The vast majority of them were small craft steel refineries.
Yeah.
But I will start working on
craft steel refinery. Didn't even know they had such a thing.
Yeah, they do specialty.
Yeah, they produced 50% of the steel in the United States last year.
Yeah, drill steel.
For hard rock open pit, how much overburden is too much? Well, again, that depends entirely on the situation. If you have a small high-grade deposit that goes deep, you're probably better off to do underground.
Correct.
But if you have a large deposit, which is shaped kind of like a hole in the ground already, then it makes a lot more sense to open pit. The numbers you're dealing with are something called the stripping ratio. In other words, how much waste you have to move to get how much ore, and your cost per ton mining cost. And underground mining is going to cost you more, but has a much lower stripping ratio. But if you're dealing with a low-grade deposit, your mining cost may exceed the total value in the rock. So this is what mining engineers do for a living, basically, and they have programs that do it now. They have programs, once you've gotten all your drill results, You just tell the computer, okay, at this price of copper and this price for diesel fuel and this price for that and this price for that, what's my best looking pit? And it'll design it for you.
You
Right.
have your little calculator on your website that can give
I
you.
mean, if it, at depth, sometimes they'll even block cave it. They'll mine it from underneath it and then cave everything above them down in and continually block cave it.
Yeah.
And that part of that's because of permitting an open pit anymore, especially in the United States, it's really, really hard. But to mine it from underground and eventually just end up with a basin because you block caved it, but all you did is cave the surface in on it, it is easier to permit.
Now, Eva brought up something too. If you go to my website, hardrockuniversity.com, or actually it's hardrocku.com, isn't it, little one?
Yes.
hardrocku.com. There is a calculator on there, and it's mining projects cost estimator or something like that. And what it is it allows you to plug in numbers, and it will do all the calculations. For example, if you want to know what the stripping ratio is going to be and what your cost per ton, it can do some of those calculations for you. What's really good for is playing what if games. Suppose I found a vein this wide over here, this wide of this grade. How many tons do I have in the whole thing? And if I've got to make a 4-foot wide tunnel to dig it out, how much is that going to cost me, etc. And so by being able to do those calculations simply and easily, that may make your job a lot easier. But it's free to use. It's been pretty well tested and debugged. As far as I know, all the calculations will work out if you input the right starting numbers. But that's the purpose of it, is so that you can play those games and get a good idea whether you're in the ballpark or not. Got to start somewhere. There's huge software pack. Oh yeah, yeah. They're enormous software packages. But unless you've got a whole bunch of information and some really smart guys to plug it in, it's not going to be terribly useful. Mine is just a quick and dirty estimator so that you can take a real world situation on a micro mining scale and say, if that hill that's 200 feet long and 100 feet wide and 50 feet high, if that stuff is running 1/10 of an ounce per ton, how much gold is there? And how cheap would I have to process it to make money? Things like that. It can do that very, very easily. So if you have a situation, go have at it. That's what it's there for. And me and Joachim worked on it for about 3 weeks. He's a good computer guy, doesn't know anything about mining. I'm a good mining guy, don't know much about computers, so it took us a little while, but it's fairly straightforward.
On TAG, I was up at a placer here a few years ago. The guys were over 80 feet of stripping for the placer, and it was that good. But when you looked at the sidewall of their pit, by the time they took out the gravel that had gold in it, they had a pit wall that was about 100 to 110 feet high. It was amazing the amount of dirt that they moved. They had a pit wall that was about 100 to 110 feet high. It was amazing the amount of dirt that they moved. Rock.
It's essentially just a spreadsheet, as the Oxio is talking about. It's free to use. Just go to my website and you can use it. Just plug in your numbers and it'll give you an idea. But as I say, it's not a complex mine planning program. It's just a quick and dirty estimator. It's like if somebody said, well, can I make money building a house there? Well, how much is it going to cost you for the land? How much is it going to cost you to get the utilities brought in there? How much is it going to cost you per square foot to build the house? And what's the sell price for houses under this thing? You plug those numbers in, you can figure it out pretty easily. But that doesn't tell you how many board feet of 2x4 you're going to need.
Right.
You know, it's not that complex, but it's just the mining projects cost estimator or something like that on hardrocku.com.
And we do intend on updating that website at some point in the nebulous future.
Yeah, somebody will, not me. But yeah.
Translation, I'll end up doing it.
Or somebody else, yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's a good place to start. And that's it. When you're just looking at a mine, I've done this so much, I can look at a mine and pretty much go, does that look interesting or not? But to someone who doesn't have any experience doing that, they're like, what am I looking at? Well, this will help you get a good idea. But remember, the results are only as good as the numbers you input. So be a little bit cautious on the numbers you
Input
put
worst case scenario.
It's just like your samples too. If you high grade your samples, you're lying to yourself.
Oh yeah, no one's easier to deceive than yourself.
Right, but I mean, if all the samples you pick up off the ground are all really, really nice ones, your average is going to be their test will come back way higher than what it would mine at or what's potentially there.
Okay, someone Kevin says he's buffering there. How about everyone else? Are we buffering or not? Just give me some quick feedback here to decide what we're going to do. It's 10 minutes before Eva's report here.
I haven't seen it come up on the screen there.
Yeah, I haven't noticed the motion on the screen showing any problems. Usually when we got really screwed up, when we start doing this, we can see the
a lockup.
Chink, 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 chink sort of thing. Just a bit, not buffering, not too bad. Okay,
Right.
here.
Well, we'll hang in for a few minutes.
Okay,
Then.
looks pretty good then. Does anyone want me to just go ahead and reboot for Eva's report? I could stop in just a couple of minutes here and reboot, and then we probably won't have to worry about her report. We're getting a number of people with a little bit of thing. I'm thinking it might be a good idea to just go ahead and reboot this whole thing in just a couple of minutes.
Yeah.
And then get it
Before
for
you
Eva.
have a problem.
Yep.
Yeah. So anyhow, I said that's what that calculator is for, and so that you can ascertain whether or not you're in the ballpark. And if you're not in the ballpark, you don't need to worry about it, because I can almost guarantee you one thing: it's going to be more expensive than you think. You're going to assume certain things, and those simplifications will almost certainly result in lower costs and higher returns than will actually happen.
Yep.
And so you really want to have at least, like 100% profit margin, or making twice as much money as you're spending before you feel real comfortable that you're actually going to turn a profit.
Like I said, put in worst case scenario numbers. If it looks
Well,
2 feet on the surface, put in 1 foot.
Yeah, you need to be conservative on all your numbers as far as what you think is there.
Okay, so what we're going to do is I'm going to go ahead and shut her down now and then bring it back up. And then actually it usually takes 3 times as long and costs twice as much, is my rule of thumb.
We'll give everybody a few minutes.
Yeah, we got
come
21
back.
people up and running right now. So let's go ahead and reboot this. And okay.